Caitlin Clark didn't just join the WNBA. She rewrote the rules on day one. She brought in record-breaking viewership, sold-out arenas. Fans who had never watched a single WNBA game before were suddenly glued to the screen. She wasn't just a player. She was a movement. And with that spotlight came growing tension. Not every veteran liked the way the narrative shifted. Not everyone appreciated being pushed out of the spotlight by a rookie with a three-point range and a massive fan base. And at the center of the blowback, Brittney Griner. Once the face of the league, Griner had built a career on physical dominance and cultural impact. But suddenly, she wasn't a headline anymore. Clark was. And Griner didn't take it well.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
She wasn't just benched, she was boiling. That frustration finally exploded in one of the most chaotic moments of the season. A viral clip that showed Griner in a heated altercation with Clark, shouting racial slurs mid-game. It was ugly. The league was rocked. Fans were horrified. The fallout was swift and brutal. Almost overnight, the public turned on Griner. That one moment undid years of legacy. Her dominance, her activism, even her story of resilience, all of it got buried under one viral meltdown. Griner tried to control the narrative, first through a shaky public apology, then through a quiet retirement. But nobody missed the subtext. This wasn't a thank you for the memories moment. This was a forced hand. The league didn't say it out loud, but the message was clear. The era of Griner was over. Meanwhile, Clark kept rising. No scandal, no ego, just record-breaking stats and packed stadiums. Fans rallied around her not just because she was good, but because she represented something new, a league that was changing. Faster, younger, more marketable. Griner's exit didn't just mark the end of a career. It marked the end of an era. A reminder that in pro sports, legacy is fragile, and the spotlight is never guaranteed. You either evolve with the game, or the game evolves without you. And for Brittney Griner, the game moved on. This wasn't the farewell of a legend. It wasn't the graceful send-off the league usually reserves for its icons. Brittney Griner's retirement came not with flowers, but with fallout. Not with cheers, but with controversy. And now, it's official. Griner is out, and the WNBA has made it clear. The new era has no room for unresolved bitterness. At one point, Brittney Griner was untouchable. A 6'9" powerhouse with a vertical that turned heads, a dunking ability that made headlines, and a name that became synonymous with WNBA dominance. Her presence was undeniable. She was the center of every highlight reel, the face of every major brand push, and the player who could do what others couldn't, bring attention to a league still fighting for mainstream respect. But nothing lasts forever, and Griner's reign didn't end quietly. It ended with a shove, a slur, a camera, and a scandal that broke whatever goodwill she had left. The incident with Caitlin Clark didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened at a time when the league was already transitioning. Griner was no longer the unstoppable force. Her game had slowed. Her role had diminished. And in contrast, Clark was rising. Fast. Clark wasn't just a rookie with a good shot. She was the WNBA's breakout star. She drew record-breaking viewership, sold-out arenas, and turned casual fans into devoted followers. And that momentum, it didn't sit well with everyone. Especially not the players who had spent years grinding in the league without half that attention. That resentment reached its boiling point during that game. What should have been a routine matchup turned into a viral disaster. A heated play, an aggressive foul, and then Griner's voice caught on a hot mic. Racial slurs aimed at Caitlin Clark. Not frustration, not banter. Slurs. The backlash was immediate. Clips flooded social media. Commentators scrambled to make sense of it. Fans were stunned. The WNBA, notoriously careful with its public image, stayed quiet for longer than expected. And in that silence, the damage spread. Griner's supporters began to shrink. Her defenders ran out of excuses. Her critics? Louder than ever. And Caitlin Clark? She didn't respond. She didn't need to. She kept playing, kept leading, kept building her name without saying a single word about the incident. That silence? It only widened the contrast. One player lost control. The other stayed composed. And fans took notice. Eventually, Griner issued an apology. It was short. It was cautious. And it felt more like a legal necessity than a sincere expression of regret. She addressed Clark by name, acknowledged her inappropriate words during the incident, and said she hoped to move forward in a way that reflects the respect the game deserves. But the apology didn't land. The moment had passed. The footage had done the damage. The apology felt like a Band-Aid on a fracture. Too late, too careful, too scripted. And then came the announcement. Brittney Griner was retiring from the WNBA. No farewell tour, no league-wide acknowledgement, just a statement and a quiet exit. And the league? It didn't slow down. It didn't mourn the loss. It leaned harder into its new stars, Clark, Angel Reese, and the wave of Gen Z players that bring not only talent, but also charisma, media savvy, and global appeal. Griner's retirement felt less like a celebration of a legendary career and more like damage control. A forced step back so the league could move forward. Because this wasn't just about Griner versus Clark. It was about a cultural shift in the WNBA. The old model, veteran dominance, physicality, and guarded personalities, was being replaced by a new vision: speed, finesse, marketability, and relatability. The WNBA is betting on youth. It's betting on players who connect on and off the court. And it's very clearly not betting on scandal-plagued veterans whose presence now feels more disruptive than inspiring. This isn't new in sports. Leagues evolve, stars fade. But what makes Griner's story different is the way it ended. Her career didn't taper off. It imploded, not because she couldn't compete anymore, but because she couldn't adapt to the new game, to the new pace, to the new faces. And instead of stepping into a mentorship role or embracing the change, she fought it. She let ego take the lead. She let resentment show. And when it all unraveled, it wasn't just about one incident. It was about a pattern, a refusal to evolve. The Twitch streaming that followed, it felt like an attempted rebrand, a soft landing after the backlash. But fans weren't biting. The incident was still too fresh. The league was already focused on building up Clark as the new face, and Griner's pivot to digital felt more like a retreat than a reinvention. This moment represents more than the downfall of one player. It represents a changing of the guard. Caitlin Clark isn't just a rising star. She is the standard now. And her calm response in the face of public disrespect only strengthened her position. The league is marketing her as the future, and for good reason. She's everything a modern sports brand wants: talented, clean, composed, and widely marketable. Meanwhile, Griner's name is now more tied to conflict than competition. Her legacy, once built on groundbreaking athleticism, is now tangled with controversy. It's a reminder to every veteran athlete: no matter how dominant you were, no matter how high your peak, if you don't handle the transition with grace, your legacy will change. And not always in your favor. Griner could have retired a legend. Instead, she left as a cautionary tale. The WNBA didn't just move on, it accelerated past her. And now, a new era is here. It's faster, it's smarter, it's built for a global audience, and it's being led by athletes who know how to balance pressure, performance, and public image. Clark is setting that tone, and everyone else, they're either adapting or they're out. So where does Brittney Griner fit in this new chapter? She doesn't. Not as a player, not as a mentor, not as the face of anything the league wants to showcase. And that's the reality of evolution in professional sports. You're either part of the future or a lesson from the past. So what do you think? Was Griner's apology sincere, or was it just a final attempt to control a spiraling narrative? Should her career be remembered for the highs or the final downfall? And is the league right to leave veterans behind in pursuit of a cleaner, younger, more marketable era? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more deep dives into the drama that shapes sports culture, the meltdowns that redefine careers, and the rivalries that expose the truth behind the box score. Because in the WNBA's new era, the scoreboard is only half the story. Brittney Griner's story should have ended with legacy. It should have been about impact, influence, the barriers she broke, the moments she created. It should have been about those early years when she dominated the paint, soared above defenders, and gave women's basketball a face that could headline national sports media. But it's not, because instead of leaving on her own terms, Griner left after crossing one line too many. It wasn't age that ended her career. It wasn't injury. It wasn't the normal wear and tear of a long, successful run. It was something much harder to fix: public perception. Once she was caught on tape directing racial slurs toward Caitlin Clark during a heated game, everything changed. And not in a media overreacted kind of way. In a "this is what your legacy is now" kind of way. There's no one hearing that audio. No one seeing the shove. No PR strategy strong enough to sweep that under the rug. Not in this media era. Not with a fan base that is younger, more engaged, and less willing to separate on-court talent from off-court character. Griner's defenders tried to spin it. Tried to say it was just heat-of-the-moment trash talk. But trash talk doesn't cross racial lines. Trash talk doesn't trend globally for all the wrong reasons. Trash talk doesn't send a once-dominant player into early retirement, apologizing on the way out. That apology, let's talk about it, delivered through a statement, not in person. No cameras, no emotion, just a few carefully worded lines about regret, competition, and what the game deserves. But it didn't sound like growth. It sounded like strategy, because by the time that apology dropped, the league had already started its pivot. You could see it happening. Brittney Griner's name was getting pulled from promo graphics. Her storylines were gone from the WNBA's social media channels. Commentators had moved on. Caitlin Clark, meanwhile, was in the middle of another breakout performance. Angel Reese was in the middle of a press tour. Aaliyah Boston was anchoring her team's defense. Griner? Benched, silenced, and then gone. Her retirement was announced in a press release that barely made the front page of WNBA.com. No jersey retirement plans. No farewell interviews. No public goodbye. It was a vanishing act. The league didn't mourn the exit. In fact, it looked like a weight had been lifted. Griner had become a PR liability. And in a league working overtime to appeal to broader audiences, corporate sponsors, and television networks, keeping someone like her in the spotlight wasn't just risky. It was untenable. Because this is not the same WNBA it was when Brittney Griner came in. Back then, the league leaned hard into physicality, into post-play, into grit. But the modern WNBA is different. It's about pace, spacing, shooting, personal brands. The focus is on players who can dominate the court and go viral off it. Griner didn't evolve with it. She stuck to the old model, the intimidate and impose mentality. And when players like Caitlin Clark came in, players who could drop 30 points from the arcade and then host a podcast after, Griner didn't adapt. She resented, and that resentment turned into confrontation. The physical play against Clark wasn't just hard fouls. It was targeted. It was calculated. And it escalated until that one game, where everything finally cracked. The shove, the slurs, the camera. And just like that, Griner became the league's problem. The WNBA is built on empowerment, unity, growth. It's already navigating a complex media landscape where critics are waiting to tear it down. It cannot afford to carry players who bring in controversy that has nothing to do with the game. And Griner brought controversy, not in the athlete speak out way, not in the fight for justice way, in the self-inflicted, legacy-destroying, sponsors won't touch it way. So she was gone. And with her exit, the league could finally pivot fully. Caitlin Clark is now the face of the WNBA. Whether you love her or not, she's the one filling arenas, selling jerseys, making people watch. Her highlight reels hit TikTok before the game is even over. She doesn't bring baggage. She brings buzz. Angel Reese, another breakout star who understands both the game and the media. She's magnetic, unapologetic, and built for this era. And the veterans who are still here, the ones who didn't lash out, they're evolving. They're coaching the next generation. They're helping the league grow. That could have been Brittney Griner. She could have taken Clark under her wing. Could have turned this into a passing the torch story. Could have ended her career as a mentor, an icon, a leader. Instead, she chose to fight the wave. and the Wave won. Now, what's left is a story that young players will be taught, not as inspiration, but as warning. The warning is simple. The game will evolve with or without you. You can either be remembered for your impact or your downfall. You choose which moment defines you. Griner chose wrong. She let emotion overtake professionalism. She let pride override progress. She let one moment of hostility rewrite a decade of legacy. And now, Caitlin Clark stands in her place. Not because she pushed Griner out, but because Griner vacated the role. The WNBA has moved on. It's pushing forward with a vision that includes visibility, accessibility, and control. The league wants players who understand what's at stake, not just on the court, but off it. Players who know how to balance competition with composure. Because fans have options now. They're tuning in from all over the world. They don't just want athleticism. They want connection. They want to root for players who represent the future, not players stuck in the past. And that's the hard truth about Brittney Griner. She was historic, but in the end, she couldn't evolve. And history only matters if you protect it. She didn't. So what are you left with? A retirement that feels more like an escape than a send-off. An apology that felt more like a legal formality than sincere reflection. And a player whose final chapter didn't match the greatness of her beginning. That's not just a fall. It's a legacy turned cautionary tale. Brittney Griner had every opportunity to finish her career with dignity. She had the resume, the history, the influence. She had the kind of stature in the game most players only dream of. She had a legacy, but she couldn't protect it. And that's where this whole story hits hardest. Not because she wasn't great, but because she let one moment redefine her. Not because the league turned its back on her, but because she gave them a reason to. The moment that was supposed to be about rivalry, about grit, about two different generations clashing on the court, turned into something so much darker. Something no post-game interview could fix. Because when Griner made it personal, racial, aggressive, she crossed a line the league and fans just weren't willing to let slide. And let's be honest, the WNBA has been in survival mode for years. It doesn't get the same media deals. It doesn't have the same margin for scandal. So when a player, any player, becomes a liability instead of an asset, the response is swift. And Brittney Griner went from MVP to problem almost overnight. It wasn't just the physical altercation. The WNBA is no stranger to hard fouls and emotional moments. It was the words, the slurs, the targeted nature of the attack, the fact that it was all caught so clearly on video. And once that footage spread, it was over. There was no public relations strategy that could undo it. The apology? It wasn't a redemption arc. It was a formality, a checkmark on the league's cleanup protocol, a way to say, we addressed it without actually rebuilding trust. And Griner? She said what she had to say and disappeared. Meanwhile, the WNBA leaned into the new faces. It had no choice. Caitlin Clark's popularity exploded. Angel Reese became appointment viewing. The rookie class wasn't just talented. They were the face of a completely new WNBA. One that was younger, more digital, and way more aware of public image. These players grew up in the age of accountability. They know that one wrong move can cost everything, and they carry themselves accordingly. That's the difference. Clark didn't respond to the incident. She didn't get caught in interviews throwing shade. She didn't even repost the video. She let the footage speak for itself, and she let the league and the public draw their own conclusions. And that silence, that composure, it made her look even stronger. While Griner's name trended for all the wrong reasons, Clark's profile only grew. She became the player fans wanted to support. Not because she asked for sympathy, but because she showed maturity. That's what the league is building around now. Not just talent, but composure. Not just athleticism, but marketability. And Griner, for all her power on the court, never adapted to that part of the game. The media-savvy part. The brand-conscious part. The part where every mic is live and every camera is recording. Her style, her energy, her refusal to evolve. It all caught up to her. Because in today's WNBA, being a veteran doesn't give you immunity. Being a star doesn't buy you protection. In fact, the bigger your platform, the bigger the responsibility. And when you fail at that, the fall is public, and it's permanent. The league saw that Griner's presence was no longer helping them grow, that instead of inspiring the next generation, she was actively clashing with it. And no league, especially not one still fighting for mainstream relevance, is going to let that slide. Her retirement wasn't a decision. It was a consequence. There's a difference between going out on your own terms and getting pushed out. And based on everything we've seen, everything we know, it's clear this wasn't a graceful exit. It was a retreat. The league moved on, and fast. Griner's story is now the past. Clark's is the future. Reese's is the future. Players who know how to lead, not lash out. Players who know how to build the game, not drag it into drama. Players who understand that every mic is live and every moment matters. Because in the WNBA now, every player is also a brand. Every play is a clip. Every interview is a statement. And if you don't play both games, the one on the court and the one off it, you're going to get left behind. That's what happened to Brittney Griner. She didn't lose her talent. She lost the room. She lost the fans. She lost the benefit of the doubt. And once that's gone, especially in a league that depends on public trust, you don't get it back. And now the conversation isn't about how dominant she was. It's about how it ended, about why it ended, about what it says when a player who once defined the league is quietly removed from its narrative. Because you won't see Griner's name in league promos anymore. You won't see highlight reels or retirement tributes. The league isn't erasing her, but it's not celebrating her either. And that silence? That's intentional. This is the league's way of drawing a line between the old era and the new one, between those who lifted the game up and those who, in the end, dragged it down. And whether it's fair or not, that's where Brittney Griner's name now sits, in the middle of a cautionary tale about ego, legacy, and how not to navigate the twilight of a career. She had a chance to lead. She chose resentment. She had a chance to pass the torch. She tried to burn it. And in doing so, she made her exit the story, not her achievements. That's not legacy. That's regret. And now, we watch as the WNBA writes a new chapter, one built around players who get it, who show up not just to play, but to represent something bigger, to lead the sport forward, to make it undeniable. Because that's what Clark is doing. That's what Reese is doing. That's what this new class of players is doing. Writing a future that's clean, clear, and contagiously watchable. They're not just changing the game. They're leaving the drama behind. And that might be the biggest shift of all. So now we turn it over to you. Where does Brittney Griner's legacy stand now? Do you think she'll be remembered for her early greatness, or for the controversy that ended it? Was the league right to step away? Did her apology to Caitlin Clark land? Or was it just damage control? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more breakdowns of the biggest meltdowns, shifts, and shockwaves shaping modern sports. Because the scoreboard never tells the full story, and around here, we're watching the whole game.